That's why a lot of times we just go with ultimately, hey, let's just replace it. So now let's specifically talk about Clomid and Enclomiphene. And like we said earlier, these are going to work on the brain, the hypothalamus, and the pituitary. And what, like in our analogy earlier, 10, 10, 10, everyone's happy. Clomid and Enclomiphene are going to block this. You're gonna tell the brain, hey, we didn't get that 10, we actually got 0. And then your brain goes, well, heck with that, let's double it. And then your brain is going to end up asking for 20. That increases LH and FSH. And then ultimately it's going to increase your testosterone. So Clomid, clomiphene citrate, this is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. But then ultimately it's a weird drug. I have a whole other video on this that it can modulate the receptor in different ways at different places. So on the brain, it says, hey, I don't have any estrogen. And on the breast tissue, it says, I don't have any estrogen. But then it doesn't do that on your bones. Because, for instance, if we didn't hit that receptor on your bones, you would get weaker bones. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we learned that Clomid works specifically, and increases LH and FSH. Now, what's interesting about both of those hormones, LH is luteinizing hormone, FSH is follicular stimulating hormone, and we get these names actually from women, right? In women, they have these follicles, and that's in the first half of their cycle, and then they release the luteus corpus, and that's where we get the luteinizing hormone. So we don't even have these in guys, but it still does regulate the production of both testosterone and estrogen. And the point I'd like to make, and maybe some other practitioners or researchers can weigh in, is I don't ever see a direct correlation between like putting a guy on Clomid or Enclomiphene and their LH or FSH going up, and specifically their testosterone. Like what we're taught is LH is mostly for testosterone and FSH is mostly for estrogen. If a guy comes to me and his LH is 3 and his testosterone is 300, I don't see his LH go to 6 and then his testosterone go to 600, is what I'm saying. So I'd be interested to hear what other practitioners have seen. I just don't buy into the direct correlation of either of these drugs working specifically on specifically LH or FSH. And LH also in women, we look at this more for acting on progesterone. So dosing wise, this is all over the place. Some guys, they do as much as 50 milligrams daily. I've seen it 50 milligrams twice daily. I think 25 milligrams every other day is a more conservative dose that will probably get you where you want to go. What's nice about this is that it is an oral pill. This will keep you fertile, and it will keep your testicular size and your ejaculatory volume. Half-life somewhere between 5 or 7 days, and we'll talk about the difference between zuclomiphene and clomiphene in a moment. So it does make this easier to do instead of injecting, and you can stop pretty easily. Like when we're talking about testosterone, stopping can be a little more difficult. The cons that I see is that I don't really see Clomid do that great about alleviating symptoms. When guys come to me and they have brain fog, they're fatigued, no drive, no libido, I don't really see a lot of guys get on Clomid like, wow, this completely changed my life. It does. I have seen it work with some guys. I think Steve Cook, who a lot of you are probably familiar with, the bodybuilder, talked about his experience with that, and many other influencers out there have talked about taking Clomid, and I just don't see it really help. And when I took it, like I make the joke, I'm like, what am I doing? It felt good when I took it the first couple times, but after maybe 5 or 6 doses, I was cold. I had like hot flashes. I didn't feel good. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I was really moody, easily agitated, and I want to sit at home and take a bubble bath. So, then I wrote down here PCT. And why I wrote PCT is because a lot of bodybuilders use this post-cycle therapy. When they're on testosterone, they use this drug to get their HPA axis going again. And I think they ultimately feel terrible, not only because they're using way too high of whatever drugs they're on, oxyandrolone, androlone, testosterone, but then also this drug they take, and then I think they actually compound how terrible that they feel. Now, let's contrast this with the more popular isomer of Clomid. So Clomid has 2 parts of it. It's enclomiphene and zuclomiphene. This one I actually like a lot more. If I had to take, I would probably never take Clomid again. Now, if like TRT and ACG got taken away, I could do enclomiphene monotherapy. I felt pretty good on it. And this is part of the drug Clomid that's been isolated. And if you haven't been paying attention, I did a whole video on the FDA doesn't really like this one. They don't think it's safe and effective. They want to get rid of it. So keep your pulse on that. You can still get it from compounding pharmacies for now. So keep a lookout. Now, again, selective estrogen receptor modulator works the same way that Clomid does, but it seems like for whatever reason, it works better on just the LH. Like I said, there's 2 isomers to this drug. Enclomiphene, which seems to work more on LH. Again, I don't really, for whatever reason, guys feel better on it. And I don't think it really increases testosterone more than I've seen with Clomid. And just for a reference, I've seen Clomid and Clomiphene get guys total testosterone over 1,000 very easily. 1,200, 1,500 is possible. Free testosterone, you're looking at, an easy 10, 15 milligrams per deciliter. The sexual hormone binding globulin seems to rise equally with enclomiphene and Clomid, where within testosterone it drops. ACG, most of the time I see the sexual hormone binding globulin drop with ACG. So take that with a grain of salt. Now, dosing wise, we're looking at something like, when I did 6.25 milligrams every day. You can go as low as like 3. I've seen, again, doses as high as 25 milligrams, 50 milligrams a day. It's just going to kind of depend on your sensitivity to the medication. And like I said, I see better clinical outcomes using enclomiphene. And it seems like with Clomid, if you're taking it, you feel terrible. Like you might end up feeling terrible for a couple weeks. And I think it's because of that long half-life. Where with enclomiphene, it's out of your system in a couple days. And so it has a lot of the pros that Clomid has. And I don't think I talked about this with Clomid and enclomiphene both. They stimulate your pituitary, and your pituitary sits on your optic chiasm. And the theory is that the pituitary kind of grows a little bit when it's stimulated so much, and it presses down on your optic chiasm and can give you vision disturbances, like changes in colors, floaters, all kinds of, just really random stuff. I did notice a little bit of floaters. I think when I was at 12.5 daily, I'm very sensitive in clomiphene. I got my test over 1,000, 1,200 with it. And I stopped. It went away in a couple days. I do believe I saw a research paper that people who had the vision changes and continued to use it for like 2 or 3 years, it became permanent. I've not seen that. I've not heard that. If you know of anyone who's have that, please leave a comment below. But it seems like to me, anyone who has these vision issues on clomiphene, you stop and it goes away in a couple days. So that's Clomid and clomiphene. Now we'll talk about ACG. ACG, like I said earlier, it's going to be working on